Welcome friends to another 40k video. The Emperor of Mankind opens his eyes and leaves the throne to face the end of empires. Let's get straight into it. The end of empires was made in the warp from a single act when one human willingly murdered another of his kind. For the first time, this forged the end of empires until it grew with every life taken by a human hand, every word spoken from hatred, every thought of willingly killing another. As a way to protect humankind from the warp, the Emperor had started the Webway project. The idea was humans would go into that eventually to protect them from the demons in the warp. The Emperor of Mankind arrives. He wore the gold of the Custodes and a red cloak. He wore a bolter of black and bronze on his back and a sword, a tool for blood, not ornamental. Ornate circuitry ran over his blade. He entered the Custodes' front ranks. Some warp-spawned left just at the sight of him. Then they charged. Ra, a Custodes, was by his father's side. He speared through the Neverborn, foolish enough to come near him. He asks the Master of Mankind for an order. The Emperor raises his sword and brings it down, and the Webway was on fire. Within the flames were the fallen 10,000, the betrayed Istvan, and others, reborn, as the book says. In his father's immolating wrath, demon flesh burned from their bones. Waves came from the sword, corrosive to all they met. It was a purifying radiance. The book states it like this: to look at him was to go blind. To stand before him was to die. The Custodes followed in their lord's wake, reaving the demons of the warp. Their king had come, the sun had risen, and they charged with a cry that far eclipsed the wails of the demons dying on their blades. Mankind's saviour and his 10,000 walked through the demons. Those who made it to the Emperor and attacked found only a golden mist, and the Emperor would appear at their back with the thunder of his psychic weight. They would find his blade already in their spines. Then fire lit them from within, boiling their eyes and bursting their bodies, and the Custodes were advancing. They were winning. The Emperor threw his sword over Ra's shoulder like a spear, burying itself in a warp demon's skull. Then with a flare and mist it was back in his hand, and he carried on killing. A reptilian canine leapt at the Master of Mankind to pass through the space he had been using, and his sword manifested in its throat. He paused, then ripped it free. The Emperor tells Ra to be ready. As the flow of warp spawn continued, Ra fought back to back with his master. The ages recall it as their blades wove a lattice of silver light, eviscerating everything that approached their edged web. The Emperor says via his mind, I sense such purity of being, such pure, unadulterated malice. Flame from the Emperor's blade goes forth and revealed a shadow, a man with hundreds of wounds, shown naked on him as a legacy. The echo of the first murder, the Emperor said to Ra, who sees doubt in the Emperor. Then he was gone and met the demon, blade to blade. The end of empires struck first and drew blood, surprising the Emperor. 5 talons dripping red. The Emperor, who appeared as he wanted to others, to the Custodes, appeared as just a man. Then Ra sees the many faces of the Emperor, including many men who had once lived, and that the Emperor was impaled, and he was lifted on its claws. The Emperor dropped his sword, and Ra called for the Custodes to save their master. Then he ran faster than he ever had. Within his mind, Ra hears the demon say, I am the end of empires. The Master of Mankind was still held up by it, and he clawed at the arm that had impaled him. He warned his would-be rescuers, stay back, all of you, stay back. I am death, the creature promised the Emperor. Perhaps one day, but not today. Then light flared, bright enough to blind, and the Emperor appeared at Ra's side, down on his knees, hand over the wound in his chest. He bled like any other man. He speaks with telepathy, then voice, perhaps showing his struggle. Ra, he calls. It is there he sees, Ra does, that a blade ran through the Emperor's body, an ornate sword, as much sorcerer's bone as metal, a weapon with writhing, shrieking faces, souls carved upon the steel. The faces shrieked as they drank the Emperor's divine life. It thrashed as the Emperor clutched it in his hands. It was alive, starving, its form rippling and growing indistinct. The Emperor had made the demon into a sword. The master of mankind pulled it free and threw it far with his strength of mind. It hit Ra. Blood streamed from the custodian's mouth. The blade was in his body. The demon in it was embracing him. It was in his blood and bones, its disease. Ra's hands curled around it. He asks the Emperor why. He stood tall, his eyes cold, and Ra knew, and what the Emperor had said to him before came to his mind. To illuminate you, the Emperor said, as he looked upon the wonders and sins of the past. You will fight harder once you understand what you are fighting for. That knowledge to Ra had been for this, and with that knowledge he rose, leaning on his spear. The sword was now gone, and the end of empires was inside him. His very body, it thrashed there, trying to reach the Emperor, and it would never stop. It could not be killed, only imprisoned. Ra, born to serve, walked away from the Emperor to separate it from him, and for this sacrifice the Imperium of the Emperor would last longer. The master of mankind, still hurt from his fight, said from his lips to Ra, when all that remains is ash and dust, he said, strained, be ready. A possible warning that it will one day be free when most things are destroyed. Now to finish, as the book does. The sword rose, and once more it fell, the Emperor's sword. Fire tidal waved from its killing edge, immolating all in its path, clearing the way. The Neverborn, dragging themselves over the ashen remains of their kindred, tasted the same destruction. The Emperor spoke to Ra one final time, a single command, heard by no other. Run, Ra, Endymion. Drach'nyen's golden goaler, the son of a water thief, obeyed the last command he would ever be given. He ran into the webway and took the demon away from Terra. So on that note, I turn this over to you. What do you think to the custodian's sacrifice? Did the Emperor manipulate him, or was it truly to give him the strength to fight? Have you been sacrificed by the Emperor of mankind to save the Imperium? Comment down below.